शलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश। नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा. So welcome to the Manah Shiksha seminar. Shri Manah Shiksha, splendid instructions to the mind. As the title goes, Manah means the mind, Shiksha means to instruct the mind. It's instructing our own mind, training our own mind, ultimately, so that we can conquer the mind and offer the mind to the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the goal. Mayi eva mana adastva, mayi buddhim niveshaya. 12.8 in the Gita. Maya sakta mana partha, yogam yunjan madashaya. If the mind becomes attached to Krishna, then we have attained the goal. So, Manah Shiksha is a very, very important book, especially for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And this is a book written by Raghunath Das Goswami, our Prayojan Acharya. So in our Manah Shiksha course, we will be studying the actual 12 verses. The 12th verse is the Falashruti, 11 verses of the teachings of Raghunath Das Goswami to the mind, along with the commentary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur called as the Bhajan Darpan. Bhajan means bhajan, we understand. Darpan means the mirror. So these verses will, by going through and understanding, we will understand in our own mind what are the obstacles and how we can purify them so that the darpan becomes, the mirror becomes more and more cleansed and fully becomes pure. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has titled his commentary as the Bhajan Darpan. Along with the Bhajan Darpan commentary, the Bhajan Darpan commentary has two parts. One is the Shlokarta. He gives the meaning of the verse of Raghunath Das Goswami, and then he gives an instructive commentary. So these are the two parts in the Bhajan Darpan commentary. And then he has also written what is called as the Manah Shiksha Bhasha. Manah Shiksha Bhasha is like in the form of a song. The entire verse, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has composed songs which are instructive songs explaining that verse. Manah Shiksha Bhasha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur does this Like even for the Shikshashtaka, uh, each verse, Trunadapi Sunichena, he has composed a song explaining that verse in the form of a song. So there is the Manah Shiksha Bhasha also we will be studying. And this is the traditional commentaries we will be studying in Manah Shiksha. Along with that, some of the contemporary commentaries of ISKCON sannyasis, especially His Holiness Shivram Swami Maharaj and His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. They both have exhaustively spoken about it, which is in the form of now a book written commentary, which is very, very apt for practical application. So this we will be studying quite exhaustively. So there are only 11 verses, but each verse commentary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur will take 2 to 3 classes at least. And Shivram Swami Maharaj commentary will take 4 classes or 5 classes. And Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj commentary will take around 4 to 5 classes. So we are speaking about for each verse 10 classes. Of course, as the verses we go ahead, say when we come to the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th verse, the commentaries are very short because it doesn't require that much elaboration. Especially the first 7 verses, the commentaries of the contemporary acharyas are quite exhaustive. So there we will be taking a lot many classes on that. At least on each verse 10 classes you can say. So 70 classes plus my estimate is that from 9th verse onwards, it will be 9, 10, 11, 12. We will be able to finish in 30 classes. So we are speaking about 100 sessions of discussion on Manah Shiksha. It's exhaustive and it's a lifetime preparation for us. And I want the devotees who have joined this course to regularly attend these discussions one after another. Even if you miss, then the recordings are there. Please go through them and join for the next discussion, because there is a systematic progression. And if you miss something, then you will not be able to follow in the next discussions. So I request that please be in this group for next 7 months is my plan before Karthik to finish this discussion. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday mornings, 1 hour we are going to meet and discuss Manah Shiksha. So that's about Manah Shiksha in brief. So this is written by Raghunath Das Goswami. He's our Prayojan Acharya. And in the first few classes, we are going to discuss introduction given by Sachidanand Swami Maharaj. Introduction to the Manah Shiksha. The overview given by overview of the entire 12 verses on Manah Shiksha given by Shivram Swami Maharaj. And the importance of Manah Shiksha. Why Manah Shiksha is important for us. That is by an article by Urmila Mataji. We will be going through this for the next 3 days. And maybe probably next week also we will be going through that. And then only we will be starting the verse by verse discussion. So today class is exclusively focused on the introduction to Manah Shiksha. Okay. This is Sachin Maharaj saying, I read Manah Shiksha many years ago with various learned commentaries, but it struck me only recently how essential this book is. So Maharaj is speaking about his own experience, how he read the Manah Shiksha with commentaries. Of course, there's only one commentary by the Acharyas in the Guru Shish Parampara before Prabhupada, that is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But there are also some contemporary commentaries. That's what Maharaj means here. At that time, I had removed myself a little bit from my normal busy preaching pace doing extensive studies into our philosophy and into the question of how to present Krishna consciousness to the postmodern audience. So Manashiksha is also, in one sense, a book which is to be studied uh, in solitude and cutting off from our regular schedule and spending only time on studying Manashiksha. It is worth it, but depends on us how our schedules are. I did this once, that once I was with my friend devotee who was hospitalized, and I was taking care of him. And few days I was there in the hospital along with him. And that time I had studied Manashiksha exclusively. So that is the time I got a good insight into this book. So spending time separately, devoting in solitude along the countryside helps, especially in understanding Manashiksha. I'm asked myself, do we have in our tradition a guidebook to bhakti in its different stages? A book which will bring a person from the beginning to the perfection. So this was a question Sachinandan Maharaj had, whether there is a book which will start from the beginning of the bhakti stages and take us towards the perfection. As I was asking and looking around, essentially to find a book which will save me from the tremendous work of writing something myself, I again and again came upon Manashiksha. So Manashiksha is that book which will take us from the beginning stages of devotion to the perfection stage, that is love of Godhead. Of course, there is also another book written by one of our acharyas, which also speaks about the beginning stages, and it will take us to perfection. Anyone knows which is that work? Kindly raise your hand. Kindly raise your hands. There are two devotees who have raised hands. There are three. Okay. Arvindani Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Yes, I have unmuted you. Yes, Mataji.
Is it Sri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu?
Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is a Abhidaya Shastra, and it speaks more of directly, it comes to bhakti and practice of bhakti. Yes, but still, there is another work which speaks from all these progressive stages to perfection stages. Yes, definitely Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is there, but it is more of a Abhidaya Shastra, how to practice bhakti. Prayojan is only spoken in one verse. Prayojan is taken care, definitely, there is no doubt about it. In fact, if you see, Updeshamrita also speaks about, Abhidheya and how to practice bhakti and Prayojan. But I'm looking for one specific book which speaks about all the different stages you go through. It's like an inner map in your heart, which will take you to Golok Vrindavan. Okay, there are many others' hands which have been raised, but I would like to select among, yes, Janardhan Prabhuji. Which is
No,
that?
I was thinking nectar of instruction.
Not really. Nectar of instruction. It is Abhidaya Shastra, as I mentioned. I know some devotees know here, that's why I'm not asking them, I'm asking others. Satyavrat Chetan Prabhuji. Yes.
Prabhu, I think it is Madhurya Kadambini, Prabhu.
Yes, it is Madhurya Kadambini. Madhurya Kadambini is another work of Vishwanath Chakra Thakur, which speaks of all the subtle stages of purification you go through at every stage in our bhakti, and ultimately it speaks about the perfection. But Manashiksha is a little different from Madhurya Kadambini in the sense that these obstacles which are there, how to eradicate them and go further. Raghunath Das Goswami, being our Prayojanacharya, is giving those solutions here. That is the speciality of Manashiksha. Of course, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur speaks about those progressive stages, but how to eliminate these obstacles, he has dealt, but it is like a illuminating lamp by which you can see where you are situated and how you have to go ahead. But the obstacles, how to eliminate them, Manashiksha more deals in detail, I can say. Then Ravindra Swarup Prabhu told me that Manashiksha is the guidebook which takes us to full Krishna consciousness. So Manashiksha is that guidebook which takes us to full Krishna consciousness. But I was still a little doubtful whether or not this is really the book, the guidebook to Krishna consciousness, until I received a letter from our Srimati Devi Dasi. Srimati Devi Dasi is a very exalted devotee of Srila Prabhupada's, disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And she has also written some works. And especially she has compiled some works and very authentic based on our Acharya's teachings. And she's well respected among even ISKCON sannyasis for her understanding. So Maharaj received this letter. Srimati presented to me a statement from Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, where he says that Manashiksha is the Paddhati for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So she gave a quotation again from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's work Jaiva Dharma. When we call something a Paddhati, it means a step-by-step guide to progress. Pada means foot and Hati means progress. Like Gati means progress, Hati also means progress. So Manashiksha is the Paddhati, step-by-step guide on how to progress in Krishna consciousness and attain perfection. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his commentary to Manashiksha called Bhajan Darpan, or the mirror of Bhajan, that when a living entity has understood that it is his prime duty in life to develop his Krishna consciousness, when he has awakened his faith in this understanding, then he will ask how to do it. Now I have attained Shraddha, I have to do bhajan, that is my real duty in life. So how to do my bhajan? So bhajan, the Bhajan Darpan commentary, that's why is there of Bhaktivinoda Thakur to assist us along with the Manashiksha verses of Raghunath Das Goswami. Manashiksha will answer this question. If we, the readers, and I have this question and have awakened some faith that we should develop our Krishna consciousness. Now we will discuss more about this faith when we come to the first verse. When faith awakens, and now we have come to know that our goal is to attain Krishna consciousness, then we are qualified to hear the secrets of this guidebook. So who is the adhikar for taking up Manashiksha? Of course, Manashiksha is one of the books given by our Prayojanacharya. And that's why, as a prerequisite, we had stated in our course that devotees should be at least reading Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita as a prerequisite, and those who have done the Bhakti Shastri. So there is adhikar required, but as I was discussing with all of you, why did you join this course? Everyone felt the need that, somehow we want to attain the goal and chant our rounds attentively and attain Krishna Prem. So these secrets are given in this guidebook. When I was a young boy, there was a rumor amongst my friends that you could learn to make gold by an alchemical process. I remember the moment I heard about it, I said to my friends, teach me all about it, how I can make gold. Then we went into the cellar. My friend Lawrence brought all sorts of things with him, and we little boys were there in the cellar trying to make gold, but it didn't work. what we were doing only exploded in our face, and we couldn't go to the school for 2 weeks. Maharaj was very inquisitive. He's got a heart of a child. In general, I remember that from childhood, I was extremely curious to get any guidebook for getting something valuable, like gold. Krishna Prem is also like that gold. When I stumbled upon this Manah Shiksha, I thought, see, Sachinandan Swami, you have now found what you're looking for as a child. So our heart should be like gold. It should be like a gold vessel. Trunadapi sunichena tarorapi saishunam amanina manadena. If the heart is having holes, then even if you pour nectar, milk is nectar. But if it is having holes, then you cannot absorb it. So the tiger's milk is very strong, and you cannot keep it in an iron pot because the pot will break. It is said. So it has to be kept in a gold pot. So the nectar of the holy names is endowed with that potency. And if our heart is having holes in the form of these anarthas, we cannot hold it. So Sachinandan Swami Maharaj found that in the Manah Shiksha. So Manah Shiksha is that book which will transform our heart, which is in the form of iron, into gold. You have really found something to get the highest value. I practice according to these guidelines. Once I was finishing a month's time in a kind of private alchemical laboratory where I tried to do something with this Manah Shiksha, and I found miracles developing just by instructing my mind with these verses. So it's not only more important that we hear these verses, the discussion, the commentary, we start applying and training the mind, giving instructions to the mind. And when we start doing this, then there is application. When we apply, practice what we have learned, then we start deriving the benefits. So when we Rupa Raghunatha Pade, Kabe Hobe Akuti, Kabe Ama Habave Yugala Priti, Narottam Das Thakur says. So Rupa Raghunatha Pade means to be situated at the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath. So how we can be situated at the feet of Rupa and Raghunath? By reading their books. So when we read Upadeshamrit, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and Srila Prabhupada books, we are situated at the lotus feet of our acharyas. But when what we have read, we start putting in practice, we are actually serving the acharyas. So that's why Maharaj is explaining here that how he put this into practice, then the miracles started happening. So it's more important that we put it in practice, acharan, and then we can do prachar. Raghunath Das Goswami promises after the 11 verses, becoming a follower of Sri Lup and his companions, one who with a sweet voice loudly recites these 11 supreme verses, which give instructions to the mind, and strives to understand all of their meanings completely, obtains the incomparable jewel of worshipping Sri Sri Radha Krishna in the forests of Gokul. So this is the Falashruti. Not only one should recite with a sweet voice these verses, which are giving instructions to the mind, but one should try to understand, strive to understand. Please mark this. So it's not just parrot recitation. One has to strive to understand the meanings, and that too completely. So as you hear Shravana, then you have to do Manan, contemplation of what you have heard. And then you have to try to apply it. Then you start reaping the benefits. And what is the Falashruti? One will worship Radha and Krishna in Gokul. Now, at the very outset, I will be extremely blunt. Now, here comes the real heart operation. Maharaj is going to speak something which is going to be, really not feeling so good for us. As we follow Raghunath Das Goswami, you will see some open wounds in our heart and mind, into which the words of Raghunath Das Goswami will go. So, frankly speaking, as we study this Manah Shiksha and hear it, we will be humbled, and tears should start coming, seeing that, oh my goodness, there's so much dirt in my heart. And it's like, just like when there's a wound on the body, and the surgeon, takes some instruments and starts taking the wound out, it pains, and sometimes children cry and even elders cry out of pain and agony. So Raghunath Das Goswami's instructions will start removing the dirt in the heart, in the mind, and that is million times more painful than the pain of the body or the disease where the injury is there. It is very, very painful, and that is the purification required. You have to go through it. You have to go through it to purify the mind. It will not be easy. Really, it is not going to be easy. You will have to be very honest, because he presents a deep psychological analysis of the obstacles we face on our path, and it will be embarrassing. So we'll be confided with our own mind and the anarthas which are residing in our mind. We start looking within, and we start seeing our own faults. And then we will stop seeing faults in others. And the reason we don't progress in spiritual life is because we see faults in others. And the real day will come when we start progressing, when we start seeing faults within ourselves. And to see faults within ourselves, we have to be introspective. We have to turn inwards the mind. The mind is always going outwards towards the senses and sense objects. When we turn the mind inwards and see within, then we see, oh. So Raghunath Das Goswami is going to help us to turn our mind inwards to see within our own hearts the obstacles. And then we will cry out, Amara Jivan Sada Papera, Nahi Koi Punya Ralesh. And that's when the real purification begins. Especially verses 4 to 7 are the most important verses in Manah Shiksha, which will speak of the internal purification which is required to cleanse the mind. So he's going to go give a very deep psychological analysis there. However, I encourage you, because at the end of going through Manah Shiksha, you will have love of Godhead in your heart. So ultimately, by going through this purification, we will attain the Prayojan Prema. So Raghunath Das Goswami is our Prayojan Acharya, and he has given us the Prayojan Shastras. Now, does anyone know what are the other works of Raghunath Das Goswami which speak about Prayojan? Does anyone know which other works which Raghunath Das Goswami has given for Prayojan as a Prayojan Shastra? Anyone knows can raise their hand. I hope you're with me. Manah Shiksha is one book, I will mute you all, and when you raise your hand, then I'll unmute. Which are the other works of Raghunath Das Goswami where he has spoken about Prayojan? Anyone? Satyavrat Chaitanya Prabhuji, yes. Yeah, yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, this Stavavadi is it is about Manasiksha and Niyama Dashaka is there, Stavavadi.
Pardon?
Niyama Dashaka.
Swa Niyama Dashaka, yes. In fact, Manah Shiksha is part of also Stavavali, for your kind information. Yes. There is also called as something called as a Vilapa Kushmanjali. Vilapa means lamentation. But this is lamentation out of pure love in separation from Krishna. So these are very, very exalted books. And as long as one is not on Bhava and Prema stage, one should not read these books. But Manah Shiksha, even sadhakas can read. And as you read year after year, it helps us in going deeper into our bhajan. And even for your kind information, Rup Goswami has also given Prayojan Shastras, as Mataji was mentioning, that Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Yes, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is a book on pure devotion. And the first 19 chapters, which constitute the Eastern Division, where Uttama Bhakti is discussed, then Sadhana Bhakti, within Sadhana, Vaidya and Raganuga Sadhana is discussed. That is the second wave. In the third wave, there is Bhava Bhakti discussed. And in the fourth wave, there is Prema Bhakti discussed. Now, this Bhakti has components called as Rasa. There are 5 different components. So in the southern division, Rup Goswami goes into these 5 components of Rasa. And then in the northern division, not in the northern, in the western division, he speaks about the 5 primary rasas: Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. And in the northern division, he speaks about the 7 secondary rasas: the Karuna ras, the Bibhatsya ras, the Hasya ras. And then there are 2 chapters of what are incompatible and compatible rasas. But although he has spoken about Madhurya ras among the 5 rasas, but Rup Goswami exclusively has devoted a book on Madhurya ras, which is called as Ujjvala Neelmani. Ujjvala Neelmani. Again, we should not study this book until we have the blessings of our spiritual master, until we are at very exalted stage in our practice of devotion. Similarly, as Manah Shiksha book, Jaiva Dharma is also a very, very important book of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where from the beginning stages of foundational philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, Sambandha Gyan, very philosophically Bhaktivinoda Thakur develops the topic. And the first 15 chapters go into all this philosophical understanding, Sambandha, Abhidaya, Prayojan. It's quite philosophical and quite taxing, you can say, in one sense. But later on, as he comes to the concept of rasa, he goes into more detail about rasa, and especially Madhurya rasa, which is our Prayojan and goal. So Jaiva Dharma is also one book which takes from Sambandha to Prayojan. Okay. You will develop love of Godhead. Manah Shiksha means instructions to the mind. He is using a technique of Vaishnava writers to address all of their readers by addressing their own minds. So he's addressing Raghunath Das Goswami is addressing our own mind. And this kind of work in our sampradaya, there are also another set of verses which are instructing our own mind. Anyone knows which are the books which instruct our own mind? Anyone is aware which are the books written by our acharyas which instruct our own mind? Shiksha is one. The title itself is clear. Which are the any other books which instruct our own mind? Anyone would like to try also? Yes, Arvindini Mataji, yes.
Nectar of Instructions.
Nectar of Instructions, yes. Nectar of Instruction is also very similar. Any other?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, there is also the Shikshashtaka, but both again now here I would like to point out a little bit difference that both Nectar of Instruction and Shikshashtaka, it's not directly addressing our mind, but these are instructions given by someone else to us. Someone else, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking the verses of Nectar of Instruction to his intimate devotees, and Rupa Goswami has given it to us. Similarly, Shikshashtakam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking these verses to us again. But Raghunath Das Goswami's verses speak to ourselves directly, not to someone else. So got the point. So the other work which is parallel to Manah Shiksha is Vaishnav Hey by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There also it's very similar. Raghunath Das Goswami is using one technique which is pleading the mind. He's pleading the mind and praying to the mind. Oh my dear mind, please become attached to Guru, Krishna, the holy name. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur uses a different technique, beating the mind. So his instructions are also directly, Dushta Mana, oh my dear mind, what kind of a Vaishnava you are. So there also, you can draw parallels between Manah Shiksha and Vaishnav K in one sense. In the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada describes Krishna consciousness as the culture of the mind. So this he says in verse 8, Iti Updesha Saram. This means we should gradually train our mind so that throughout the 24 hours of the day, we can't think of anything other than Krishna. So to enter into Raganuga Bhakti, this is the prerequisite. The first 7 verses of Updeshamrita are Vaidhi Bhakti. 8th verse is Raganuga Bhakti. And Rag Marg, how to enter into Rag Marg, the Manah Shiksha is going to train us so that we can constantly think of Krishna. Now, we know it is very difficult to train the stubborn mind to always think of Krishna 24 hours a day. Arjuna, the celebrated hero of the Bhagavad Gita, has expressed himself very candidly on this point. So where does Arjuna say that, about the mind? Where he has expressed this candidly? Where in the Bhagavad Gita? Which verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Anyone knows? Raise your hands. Where in the Bhagavad Gita Arjuna says, expresses this candidly. Meenakshi Rajgopi Mataji. Just a second. Not able to unmute you. I don't know why. Yeah. Yes, I've unmuted him.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, in 6th chapter, Chanchala He Manah Krishna.
Yes, Chanchalam Himana Krishna. He says the mind is so restless, so turbulent, so obstinate, so strong, oh Krishna, that I think it is more difficult to control it than to control the wind. Don't ask me for too much, Krishna. When you tell me I should control my mind, he's very frank, saying, don't tell me, this is too much you're asking, Krishna. How will I control a raging storm? So that's a graphic example is giving. You're trying to tell me to control the mind. It's like trying to control the raging storm. It's not possible. But Krishna is a good teacher. He answers the arguments of his disciple and he defeats them step by step. At the end, he encourages Arjuna to start a sadhana, a practice of mind control, when he says, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So Krishna is an amazing teacher. I'm going to that verse. After Arjuna speaks this, Chanchalam Himana Krishna Pramati Balavadridam Tasyam Nigram Manne Vayo Riva Sudushkaram. Sudushkaram. It is Chanchala. It is Pramati. Pramati means it is mad. And it is very strong. And it is very determined. Four qualifying things it is known. And Tasyaham. That is why to do Nigra is very difficult. Of course, we'll not go into the analysis of this verse. But just what Krishna, when he answers as a good teacher, he says, Asamshayam Mahabhavo. Without any doubt. Here at this point, Krishna puts his hand over Arjuna's shoulder. Oh, my dear student, what you're saying, I fully agree with you. Asamshayam. And he is addressing me as Mahabhavo. You have mighty arms. So with your mighty inner strength, you need to control your mind. Mano durnigram. Mano is durnigam. But he says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya. Then he gives an assurance. He agrees with his student first, accepts that, and thereby wins his heart and opens his heart for further instruction in the form of Abhyasa tu kaunteya, Vairagya cha griyate. Now this is very important because Baldev Vidyabhushan in his commentary mentions that Abhyas and Vairagya, because this is the 6th chapter, which is Ashtanga Yoga. So Abhyas and Vairagya refers to Yama Niyam of the Ashtanga, practicing the do's and don'ts. And Vairagya is detachment, becoming detached from matter. And Abhyas means doing the Abhyas of Ashtanga Yoga. But in a deeper sense, this is not Krishna's answer. Abhyas and Vairagya. Krishna is going to answer that what really Abhyas is 7.1 in the Bhakti. Abhyas means to become attached to Krishna, attach the mind to Krishna. And Vairagya, you need not endeavor for it. When the mind is attached to Krishna, then automatically it will become detached from matter. So there is no separate endeavor for the Bhakti yogis to attach the mind, to detach the mind from matter. But of course, to attach the mind to Krishna, we need to endeavor. We need to endeavor. So in the path of Bhakti Yoga, there is attachment to Krishna, detachment naturally will follow. Janeti ashu vairagyam jnanam tad ahetukam. As also it is mentioned in 1 to 7 of the Bhagavatam. So Manah Shiksha versus Raghunath Das Goswami is going to instruct the mind how to become attached to, Krishna. And slowly, he's also going to discuss how to become detached from matter also. So Manah Shiksha does exactly these two things which Krishna talks about in the Gita. So Manah Shiksha is going to teach Abhyas and Vairagya. We have to also become detached from some things which are obstacles in the path of bhakti. Like Updeshamrit says, Atyahara prayasasya prajalpo niyamagra jana sangasya lovalam cha shadbir bhaktir vinashrati. So we have to become, we have to detach ourselves from that. So that is pratikul to our bhakti. So what are pratikul, we have to become detached, and what are anukul to bhakti, we have to become attached. So Manah Shiksha is also going to follow that. It tells us a suitable practice we can do every day, and it also helps us to detach ourselves from material things. So what are the material things which the mind is attached to? It will expose that, and it will give us alternatives how we can become attached to things related to Krishna. To get the greatest benefit from this book, we need to keep in mind that there are two very powerful forces in this world. It's already time up, and two devotees have raised their hand. I don't know why. Any questions anyone has? I don't know why the raise hand button is there. Yeah, I'm not able to see, but who has raised the hand? Yeah, Maya Narsin Prabhuji has raised his hand. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, very nicely you have presented from the beginning of introduction. Here, just now what you have mentioned, referring to that verse in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is proposing of Abhyas and Vairagya. So I have one question on that. When Arjuna heard the description of Dhyana Yoga, then he has posed this question. Yes, Prabhu. So then
Yes.
subsequently Krishna gave that suggestion that Abhyas and Vairagya will help you in controlling mind. So does it mean that Krishna has not completely disapproved Dhyana Yoga for Arjuna, but though he has concluded of the last verse that Yoginam api sarvesham bhakta is the highest, but Krishna doesn't look to disapprove Dhyana Yoga as a recommended path.
Dhyan Yoga is also one path, and even Gyan Yoga is also one path, and Karma Yoga also is one path, which Krishna has been speaking right from the 2nd chapter. But ultimately, Krishna wants to give the highest, that is Bhakti Yoga, which is going to come at the end of the 6th chapter, when Krishna is, when Arjuna has, is there any other higher yogi? Then Krishna reveals his heart. Krishna is in ecstasy there. And then Krishna says that Yoginam api sarveshanam. And then when he begins with the 7th chapter, what he had instructed as the means to control Abhyas, now he is giving that Abhyas to in the practice of Bhakti Yoga. So that's how we have to see in, everything in sync. Is it clear?
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yes, Krishnapad Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Prabhuji, similar to what Maya Narasimha Prabhu has asked in that same direction, for somebody who is a sadhaka in Krishna consciousness, who is chanting, for him, for my personal experience, I can see that I am far, far away from mind control, which is actually expected as a disciple. So, despite of trying to follow, sadhana bhakti for many years by chanting, I find it quite difficult to get into the mind control requirements. So, is Dhyana Yoga principle, Yamaniyam, has to be followed in the path of sadhana bhakti also separately?
Okay. Firstly, what I would like to say here is that when we go into the verses of Manah Shiksha, we will be going into all the techniques of mind control so that we can improve our sadhana. That's the first thing. So I will be addressing that more in detail when especially we take the contemporary Acharya's commentaries. We will be going more into the techniques of mind control. Regarding your question that is Ashtanga Yoga or the method of Ashtanga Yoga helpful in controlling the mind while in the practice of sadhana bhakti? Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur answers this in his book Prema Pradeep. This is very interesting. Two young students from Calcutta, from Bengal, come to Vrindavan, and they have heard about Sadhu Babaji, who was before an Ashtanga yogi, and now he's a Vaishnava. He was adept in practice of Ashtanga Yoga, and now he's a Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava, and they come to his kutir and they are staying with him, and they think he's very exalted because before he was Ashtanga yogi. So they think yogis are superior compared to these, sentimentalist Vaishnavas. But he's also a Vaishnava now, and this yogi turned Vaishnava takes these two students to his spiritual master, Premdas Babaji Maharaj, who is a very exalted Vaishnava. And they are surprised. Oh, your spiritual master is a Vaishnava and you're a yogi. We have taken initiation from him. And there, Premdas Babaji Maharaj speaks verses from the Uddhav Gita that all these other paths are not important for those who have taken up the practice of bhakti. So the same yogi turned Vaishnava tells, how can you say that? I was before an Ashtanga yogi and it helped me in controlling my mind and senses. And now I have taken to Bhakti Yoga. So now I'm more fixed in Bhakti Yoga. So there he completely, smashes his arguments by presenting how just by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, automatically the senses will get purified, and after the stage of Anarth Nivritti, the progress is very, very swift. And he quotes Yamadir Pate. By practicing Yamada Pate, the Ashtanga Yoga path, na shamyati, still the heart will not get purified. There will be still subtle desires will be trouble. Only Mukunda Sevangri, only by serving the lotus feet of Mukunda, then one can, although one becomes detached, but still the desires, deep-rooted subtle desires in the heart will not go away. So it's only by practice of Bhakti Yoga we can attain this perfection of controlling the senses. And Raghunath Das Goswami is going to go into it. And second point I would like to make here is that sometimes we can use these tools to aid in our practice of Bhakti Yoga. Aid in, please remember the term I'm using, to aid, just like sitting in a proper posture while sitting helps us to concentrate on the holy name. So sitting in proper asana, especially a meditative pose, helps us in chanting the holy names. So we can use them as aids, but we don't practice those sadhanas as our abhidheya to attain the bhakti goal of Krishna Prem. So that is the point. I hope it is clear, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
Yeah. So we began a little late today, 15 minutes. So that's why I took 15 minutes more. There are only few more slides to be discussed. So I will not discuss them now. We will end here and continue tomorrow the discussion. And tomorrow we will have the overview of Manah Shiksha, which is very important for us to understand. So if there are any other questions up till now, what we have discussed, I can take up 1 or 2 questions. There is one hand raised, Satyavrat Janathan Prabhuji.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, on this, you told the 2 books are there. One is Bhanusamara translation, small book. Can you tell me other small book, Prabhu?
Yeah, the one which is Bhanu Maharaj, who has translated the Manashiksha verses and the Bhajan Darpan commentary with the Bhasha. Now, there is one recent printed book also by the Golden Age, and not Golden Age Media. This is, Golden Age Media, which has the commentary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur with the Manashiksha Bhasha and with ISKCON contemporary Acharya's commentaries. I can share the link with y'all. I would recommend all devotees to buy this because we are just beginning our study of Manashiksha. After we study and then hear and then more, we would like to go through the book and make our notes. And year after year, we would like to study this book. So that is our sadhana. So I can recommend that this is more a more detailed and exhaustive book for us to study more in depth the Manashiksha. So I will share the link to this book in the group and you can purchase it. Any other clarifications or questions? Okay, so we will stop here for today and continue our discussion tomorrow morning, same time. And tomorrow we will finish the introduction and begin with the overview of the Manashiksha. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami ki jai. Hare Krishna.